Florida State loses a top recruit from the class of 2025.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today, just want to go over the latest decommitment at the third in a month for the Florida State Seminoles, and that is Malik Clark. He is from Rock Hill, South Carolina. He's a speedster that plays wide receiver, could play DB, could play about any skill spot. Looks like he's probably going to end up a Gamecock. It's not like that program is going anywhere, but right now Florida State might be worse. So if you're a receiver and you look at the numbers that Florida State's putting up in the passing game, I get it, but that's a hard hit. You just can't lose deep threats like that. So let's talk a little bit in a broader sense about Florida State recruiting with Clark mixed in. The other two kids that Florida State has lost are Myron Charles, an in-state player, as well as Davion Hilson, another in-state player, both defensive linemen. Now you lose a burner at receiver, a spot that you're struggling at. Let's be honest. This program is taking on water much faster than I'm somebody that's followed recruiting my entire adult life. I could have possibly imagined. I did not see this coming, but there is a new trend, and Florida State's right in the middle of it with every other program, Texas, Southern Cal, Oklahoma State, Illinois. It doesn't matter the program. When you struggle on the field, the impact in recruiting is next to immediate. It used to be if you had a poor season or there were some questions about the coaching, security or whatever, it was the class afterwards. You would sign your class, and then the next one, if there was still any uncertainty about your head coach or whatever was going on, that next class would take a massive hit. That's the way it's been for decades. That is no longer the case. It is now. 3 guys in a month is a horrific sign. There's just no way around it. And that doesn't mean this is over. The buzzards are circling. There are 2 other wide receivers that are committed to the Noles. Dalen McCutcheon out of the greater Dallas area, really good player. I don't know him as well. I've run across him. I don't know him personally, but Texas and Texas A&M want him. I mean, Texas is arguably the best program in the country. I get it. A&M is rebuilding a little bit, but they got a pretty good roster, and they're both local. They're both definitely better than Florida State. The other guy is C.J. Wiley, who was, at the time when he committed to the Noles prior to the season, I made this statement that, in my opinion, he is the biggest surprise commit, not just for the Florida State Seminoles, but in the entire country. He was the guy that surprised a lot of guys. Quiet kid, really nice guy. Got to know him a little bit during 7-on-7 season, big receiver, 6'4". Well, it looks like Georgia, LSU, and several of the other programs are very much in play. And from what I'm told from one of my analysts that I know very, very well, knows CJ even better than I, don't expect him to end up at Florida State. This is catastrophic. If you lose not 1, not 2, but 3 receivers, I know they're struggling, but I mean, you can't win without big play receivers. You just can't. Florida State's in a lot of trouble here. There is no way around it. They got, of course, I just did the podcast regarding the quarterback change, which was needed. Came for a different reason than I would have done it, and that's an injury to DJ Uyunglele, and you got Brock Glenn, Luke Kromenhawk. They're going to be competing for the job, and I assume both will play against Clemson. But they have to find a way, and I'm not saying I have the answer here. I'm not saying I do, because I certainly do not. You can't lose these guys and expect to go and improve your program next year and beyond. It doesn't work that way. I don't know why it's taking less time now, but again, this is a trend across a lot of schools, and you just can't get wiped out at any one position. But anybody that thinks that it's a coincidence that wide receivers don't want to be a part of this offense, I've got some swampland for you if you want to buy it. Just for fun, I'm going to pull up the passing stats nationally right now. It's probably not going to be very fun. Yards per game is one thing, but the biggest thing for me, a coach a long time ago told me this, and I believe that he's right, because you just want to get the ball in your playmaker's hands, He said the key in the passing game is just completion percentage / completions in general. And I thought at the time that was really generic. But here's what, there's 134 teams in the FBS. Florida State is 128th in completion percentage. 128th. They're at 52.2%. There is not another Power 4 school below them. Northwestern is 126. Look, if Northwestern is better than you at completion percentage, there are problems that go beyond just about anything else I can imagine. If you want to look at yards at attempt, Florida State probably not doing much better there either, to be honest with you. Let's see. They are currently, wow. Florida State is 102nd at 6.6. I mean, this is ridiculous for Florida State. So in my opinion, and I don't know McCutcheon personally, CJ's not going to take calls on this. These kids, they're looking at the games too. I get it. And maybe Florida State can hold on to those guys. McCutcheon, I don't know his situation quite as well, but I know that the buzzards are circling there too. I've been told CJ Wiley probably isn't going to end up in the class. Florida State needs to figure this out, and very, very quickly. Before I end this show, there is one thing here to note. This weekend, when Florida State plays Clemson, it's a chance to change the tide a little bit. It's a chance to change the tide. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Seminoles, because one of those young quarterbacks could catch the eye of some receivers. Hey, NFL fans, you have a chance to start the season with the big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. If Florida State wants to salvage this recruiting class, obviously they need to win some games. That's the sidebar. I'm not going to bore anybody with that. But style of play, aesthetics, if you will, the eye test, comfort, people liking how you play, all those things factor into recruiting. No position is more important with that than quarterback, and no two positions are more connected than wide receiver and quarterback. So Luke Comenhawk, Brock Glenn, they're competing to play against Clemson. Who's going to get more reps? Who's going to start? All that stuff. I think they'll both play. I could be wrong. And I talked about that on last night's live show, that it's being uploaded this morning. You can check it out on Locked On Seminoles, wherever you get your pods, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, etc. Please like and subscribe to this podcast while I'm thinking of it. And to be really honest with you, I'm curious, because this is a really weird situation for Florida State. You got an injury to your quarterback. Nobody's really happy with him. Let's be honest. I don't think he's happy with himself and how he's played. And speaking of DJ, good guy, but it's not getting it done. How much impact does it have? Clemson's defense, by the way, their pass rush, in case you didn't know, is very lethal. Run game defense is not good. It's weird. I don't understand how you have so much talent. They got an insane amount of talent in their front seven, and they're not stopping the run very well at all. But if you know that the other team is probably just going to try to run the ball, do you think they're going to establish the run well? And Florida State can't run the ball very much. Let's be honest. With the freshman quarterback, I expect 8 in the box, man coverage, bump and run, just straightforward. You can't do anything about it. That's how I would play it. But if Florida State can come out and throw the ball against that somehow, I mean, the receivers got to win one-on-ones against really talented corners for Clemson. And I mean really talented. If they can do that, maybe it could stem the tide for somebody like McCutcheon, or maybe somebody like Wiley. Maybe they could get Clark back in the fold. I don't know. They have to find a way to keep some of these guys. I've talked about Norvell being on a teeter-totter point where I don't think he's going to make it. That's my opinion. But if he's going to, these are the kind of kids he's got to keep. And to do it, as crazy as it may sound, it starts now. Because with the recruiting class taking on water like it is, you're in deep, deep trouble. You cannot lose 2-3 guys at one spot where you just have a massive hole, because then teams can just tee off on your running game. Cam Davis is future NFL running back. I have no doubt. He's not going anywhere against 8-man fronts. Nobody is. You must be able to throw the ball and attack vertically. They got the guys in the class, but one just left. I mean, that 3-man class was elite at receiver. Elite. Can't lose those guys. They got to be able to throw the ball this weekend against Clemson. And yes, I mean this weekend. First start, too bad. this weekend. Florida State has to be able to do that, or they're going to not only lose Clark, they're probably going to lose more, and that could stretch into other positions as well. This is a very important time. This weekend is the beginning, and then next couple of weeks, we'll see how long DJ's out too. But the recruits are not happy. It's obvious because they're decommitting. 3 in a month is a horrible sign. Florida State needs to figure it out, and they need to figure it out fast. Once again, thank you for checking out Locked On Seminoles. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Florida State football with me. Please hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to this podcast. I'll be back with another podcast later, talking about some of the defense for the Clemson Tigers, some of the things you can attack, kind of look at their numbers in a broader sense. I didn't quite get to go into it the way I wanted because of the news with the quarterbacks yesterday, but I'm going to go into that a little more and just give an issue about this is why they're struggling with the run game. I'm going to go watch some film. I'm surprised they struggled as much as they did the first few games, even in games they won. It's a weird deal. Their run defense stinks. How is that possible at Clemson? With all that, they struggle with the portal, obviously, because they don't try. They do not struggle with D-line recruiting. They do not struggle with linebacker recruiting. They are very good, but yet they're not stopping the run. Can Florida State exploit that? We're going to talk about that later this evening on Locked On Seminoles. Everybody have a good one, and I will talk to you very soon.